catch last week's stream. If you didn't, it is in the archive. If you did catch last week's stream, then you know that we talked about manipulation and how to get over it, how to be able to tell if somebody is trying to control our thoughts, control how we behave, make us feel like we're crazy. And so this week, since we talked about how to recognize the signs of manipulation and how we might be mistreated, we're going to be talking about ways to recover from that, recover from somebody hurting us, recovering from this thought of, oh, what if I said this? What if I stood up for myself in this moment? Or you might think, oh, I wish I hadn't said this, and you'll keep thinking about it over and over, living in this regret. And so we're going to talk about how to cope with that, how to get rid of this toxic rumination. And last week, hey, Chad, what's up? Oh, also, thank you for the follow, T. Cassander. I appreciate it. Yeah, so how many of you, I'm curious, have had these thoughts of a time where somebody said something that hurt you and you replay it over in your mind? It doesn't matter what you're doing, who you're with, what you have to get done. You replay this thought in your mind of, oh, I would have told this person off. I would have done this and that. And you can't even keep track of how many minutes or hours you've spent in your life just thinking about this moment that maybe happened a few days ago or happened 10 years ago. And you're like, why can't I get over this? Do any of you guys have that issue with rumination? There's two different types of these thoughts where and I'm curious if you guys do have this, which do you see yourself experiencing more of? There's concrete rumination, where you remember exactly what happened and you just keep replaying the actual memory, or your perception of the memory from what you remember, or abstract memory of, this is what I wish would have happened, or I wish I would have said. Louis the Claw says, yeah, I've definitely had that. I've ruminated over unresolved conflicts and future conversations. So that's really interesting to me that you said about future conversations. I mainly have abstract ruminations, actually. Okay, and making that distinction is really important because we get lost in this fantasy land, and we're distorting our reality, and it makes it. The interesting thing is what you're talking about, that abstract rumination of thinking of things in the past, that started as a coping mechanism. That's what that is. And because, I mean, as you've said in previous streams, because of that pressure that your mom put on you, where it's like, you can't trust anybody, nobody's your real friend, this and that, coping from that, you're also experiencing another coping mechanism in that same way, that abstract rumination. It's like, okay, I have to mentally prepare myself for what if this does happen. So do you feel like you relate to that, where you feel that it started as a coping mechanism? Wow, that makes sense. Love the shirt. Thank you. Got this for like $2 at Goodwill. I love thrifty shopping. Also, hi Poison. Yeah, dude. We gotta go to the Goodwill in Heidelberg sometime. But yeah. So thanks everybody who's come on already. I see we got a lot of viewers already. I'm curious to hear from anybody who's willing to, if anybody has had this rumination. We're going to talk about pushing through to the other side of that. And obviously it's going to take practice. Nothing I say tonight is going to be an immediate magical fix. This is things that you have to keep in that you'll have to keep in mind and practice. And again, there's nothing that works for everybody, but feel free to share your own ideas of what's worked for you or things that you've gotten through as well. T. Cassander, first time chat from viewer. Hello. Thanks for joining us tonight. Hi from PA. Well, also hi from PA. The overlord of cheek clapping has arrived. What's up? Cheek clapping. Wow, I'm dyslexic. Wonderful. Not too much. We are talking about how to get over the past. I've been here already. Oh yeah, Yeah, especially with what you've talked about in previous streams too, the stuff that you've gone through, growing up in an orphanage, things like that. I imagine all of the ways that you'd been treated, or unresolved feelings of being put there. Uh, Absolutely. I mean, I don't know all of the things that you're ruminating, but I imagine the difficult life that you've dealt with. That there's actually an interesting theory that ADHD can be caused or exacerbated by being in situations where you have to block out what's going on around you. Maybe your parents are fighting, or you're around some sort of unstable environment. So also, when we get into this habit of getting into our head, into this happy fantasy land, that becomes addicting too. But whenever you get stuck in your mind to the point where you wish you could escape, that's where it becomes a problem. And same with these ruminations. It comes off as a high. We get addicted to this anger, but it's just going to harm us in the end. It's good to feel anger, but when you can't get over it and you get high off of it, it gets hard. You can't step away from it, and it controls your life. You can really lose touch with reality. Oh, absolutely. Uh, I meant. Oh wait. Oh, I've been here already. I meant the Overlord is trying to impersonate me. Oh, I just got that. Um. Yeah. So, Louis, I'm interested. Whenever you said you're recovering from unresolved conflicts, do you see that more of this person hurt me and this is what I wish I would have said to stand up for myself? Or do you think, oh, I hurt this person and this is what I wish I would have said in that moment instead, or I wish I could take that back? So what do you see yourself doing more? Is this anger towards yourself or anger projected onto another person? Um, I think I think whenever we project this anger, not that it's good to project an anger onto ourselves, but I think when we project it onto other people, I think it's best to have a balance. Because when you project it onto other people and you can't set your ego aside of things that maybe you might be holding against yourself but trying to push away, that's a pain that you're avoiding to face, is the realization of maybe I could have done this thing better to avoid this. And it's hard. But when we recognize, like, hey, we're human, it's okay, it starts to we can melt away that anger towards that other person and ourselves. It's sort of a battle of recognizing both things instead of painting ourselves as completely the victim or painting the other person completely as the villain. Um, I can be a little bit of both. Usually it's I wish I knew more in this situation. Like not wanting to ask someone's motive in a conflict and wishing I knew their reasons for an action so I can act gracefully or directly address the issue at hand. Okay. So whenever you say asking someone's motive, I'm curious what you mean by that. Do you in manipulation there is a thing called plausible deniability. Well, I mean, even in regular life there's plausible deniability. I'll give you an example. If you're at a red light and it's the middle of night and you stop and maybe the red light's taking a long time and you pretend, oh, I didn't see the no turn on red, somebody could easily believe, like, oh, well, maybe they didn't see it. Okay. But if you just run through a red light, there's no plausible deniability. And sometimes we see that in other people, we get suspicious. And I'm wondering if, because of what your mom told you about not trusting people, whenever we see an instance where it's like, okay, they could be doing this and this might be their actual motive, do you find yourself giving people the benefit of the doubt, or wondering, are they trying to hurt me? Like not wanting to ask. Oh wait, I thought that was right. That's the case. I'm questioning plausible deniability in sometimes. Yeah, that is the most. I think that in gaslighting are the most demonstrable forms of manipulation, because they're things that when somebody does a form of textbook manipulation where maybe uh, what's an example? If they say, I do all this for you, why can't you do this for me? That's a textbook form of manipulation. We can see, like, okay, this person is holding something over my head. That is a fact that this is happening. But whenever it's plausible deniability, we can't actually prove is this person actually doing this to hurt me and pretending that they aren't? And it's so hard to get that out of our heads. And that's what can make that such a vortex, because we can't get out of it. And I'm curious, do you and other people, if you have experienced this, please feel free to join in. Are there, in addition to your mom having put all of this pressure on you to not trust people, have you had a lot of instances where people have abandoned you or lied to you about their motives or manipulated you that perpetuated these thoughts? Or is this mostly, do you think this mostly just stems from what you've been told? I had a friend who, well, actually, I had a friend who a guy basically tricked her and got her pregnant, saying, like, oh, don't worry, I removed myself from the situation before completion, and lied about it, and she got pregnant. And she said, I feel so stupid. How could I trust him? How could I have believed that he would stay after the baby was born? How could I believe all of the things he said? And the thing is there's no real way, unless we catch somebody like in an act, there's no real way to tell if somebody's telling the truth. Even if you talk to, investigators, CSI investigators who are, or not CSI, but people who interrogate people, they'll tell you there's no body language, everybody likes to think, oh, if this person is looking away or looking to this side, they're lying. That's not real. Basically, the way that, in interrogations they get a person to tell the truth is they just keep asking. And so, but if we don't trust anybody, there would be no society. Our society is built on having people that you trust and giving people the benefit of the doubt. So when we can't do that, it's like we're isolating ourselves and we just cause ourselves pain. Not necessarily in situations where we have a bad gut feeling. That's tricky. But all this is to say, you're not stupid for trusting somebody. And that doesn't make you any less of a person. I recently noticed I give people the benefit of the doubt. Well, I'm not sure. I've never been hurt substantially outside of family, but I've doubted plenty. I've had a couple positive experiences through long-term friendships that I keep in mind. I do have to constantly debate my anxious thoughts if I want to give adequate acquaintances a chance. Yeah, I think what you're doing is really smart, because whenever you focus on those positive friendships, there are people that really show you how you deserve to be treated, because maybe you'll have to break bad news to one friend and be like, oh, I'm sorry, such and such, and they'll flip out on you, and you'll think, oh, maybe I deserve this, but you'll tell the same thing to another friend, and they'll be understanding and non-judgmental, and you can think, oh, well, this person is treating me this way, and this person is seeing me eye to eye, and being appreciative of the people who acknowledge you. Oh, Heli Syax. How do you say your name? I'm very bad at pronouncing usernames, and I always feel bad, so feel free to let me know how to say it. Hi, how are you? You can call me Heli. Well, nice to see you. I'm glad that you joined. So I believe you've been here before, right? I just got off work. I'm so glad people in the chat are bonding. Yeah, how many of you, I'm really curious. We definitely have a tendency, whenever I said like, oh, we tell ourselves we're stupid, we have a tendency to say really mean things to ourselves. And sometimes that can come from, feeling like if we don't push ourselves, we're gonna slack off. And I want you guys to ask yourselves, and this can be rhetorical, this can be, I want to hear from you. If you had a friend that treated you the way that you treat yourself, would you be friends with that person? If you had somebody who told you, oh, nobody actually likes you, or somebody who said, you're an idiot, you're dumb, you're stupid, or do you talk to yourself lovingly? Maybe it's the complete opposite, and you're really kind to yourself. Would you be friends with yourself if you treated yourself, if a friend treated you the way you treat yourself? I've been here once. I saw you through Chad's FB and saw that you were live tonight, so I thought I'd pop in. Oh, well, wonderful. Also, thank you, Chad, for sharing my stream. I really appreciate you spreading the word, and thank you guys for coming, too. All of you. One time a friend told me I can trust anybody once, and I've kind of lived by that. Give them a chance to earn your trust, or you'll never know. Yeah, I think that I've never heard that before, but that's a really good point. I think I've had friends before who there's things that I'll be truthful about and they don't believe me. And I'll say, "Have I ever given you a reason to distrust me?" And they'll say, "Well, no." And then I'm like, "Okay, I know you've been treated shitty by friends in the past, but that's not me. I didn't do that." And I know it's hard for people to get past that. But what you're saying, Tika Sandra, is exactly right. I mean, there are some people where it's like maybe we can get a bad feeling from it, and or have a feeling somebody has bad intentions if they're saying things that make us uncomfortable or things like that. But if somebody is treating us with respect, hell, I had a friend, a really good friend of mine. I met her at a laundromat. I forgot quarters, and I said, "Hey, could you watch my stuff while I run to my house real quick and pick up quarters?" And she watched my stuff, and it's a complete stranger. I trusted her, and now we're really good friends. Um, so Louis says, so I'm especially suspicious of quiet, intelligent types, which is very funny to me because you're friends with Jacob, which is I've met a clone of if I met a clone of myself, we'd surely try to avoid each other. Yeah, I'm interested. Well, you and Jacob became friends through Smash, so I guess that's different because he's a typically very reserved type person. Jacob is very charismatic. Oh, absolutely. He is reserved in certain situations. So, I thought it was funny that you said that, but absolutely. Chad says you're welcome. Yeah, I appreciate it. Viv Falcon says V Falcon 6 says, to add on to letting people earn your trust, you can let them do that with lower stake stuff first, which I wish I could think of examples now. You know what? Actually, that's a great point. There was one time where I went over a coworker's house when I was working a restaurant job, and I sort of had a weird feeling. So I counted the money in my purse. I had 2 5s. And I brought my purse in, and then after I was done hanging out, I went back out to my car, opened my purse, and I realized a 5 was missing. And that should have been enough of a signal for me to be like, wow, I shouldn't trust this person. My money's gone. But it didn't stop me from hanging out with them again and bringing my purse in. And for some reason, I had even more money, and because I was a waitress, I had cash, and I should have listened to my gut and it just evidence, and I didn't. So learning how to take a sign and be like, I need to stop trusting this person can also, I think, be very difficult. I think especially we do that when we don't have a lot of close friends that we can trust, and do any of you feel like you don't have a lot of friends in your life or a lot of good friends, so you settle being with people that maybe treat you shittier or that you wish treat you better because you don't feel like you can get better? Alternatively, do you feel like you've been in that situation in the past and maybe aren't anymore? So yeah, definitely let me know if you guys have been in that situation where you didn't know how to stop trusting somebody. Tika Sanders says, agreed. Louis, okay, I read that one. I always knew he was very funny, and humor puts me at ease. Oh, absolutely. Two of the first emotions they say you're supposed to make somebody feel to make a good first impression. The first one is fun. And then the second one is humor. So, like I've mentioned before, like my Uber I'm outside my car, I have like fun stickers of like Betty White going like this or something like that. And when people get in, there's like funny signs of like, oh, drunk, have a complimentary barf bag. So as soon as people get in, they see that it's fun, and then they see jokes around, or I'll make a joke. And so that kind of, it makes sense that that humor puts us at ease, because we're like biologically trained, like this is how we make a good impression on somebody. This is how we receive somebody well. Uh, V Falcon 6, exactly. Yeah. Um, I think, oh, so in addition, so we were talking about how past experiences with manipulation, or what we've been told about ourselves, the ways we've been put down. Uh, how does your experience in the past prevent you from getting treated poorly now? So we talked a little bit about rumination, or worrying about the future, or that it's going to happen again. Are there ways that you're more savvy of somebody treating you poorly now that you can pick up on because of your past experiences? Definitely let me know in the chat if you relate to this, if you've experienced something like that before. Um, I know that there's plenty of ways that I've noticed patterns. Um, One person that I was friends with would have the same sort of patterns every time to get me to minimize if I had to talk about something. So I would say, "Hey, this happened between us, and I'm feeling hurt. Like, let's talk about it." And the first tactic was, "Now's not a good time." And there would always be a different reason. Oh, it's too early, this or that. Oh, it's too close to this month, or whatever it is. There was always some sort of excuse. And then if I tried to stand up and be like, no, we're going to talk about this, it would turn into, oh, well, here's the things you did at fault. There's something in psychology called transactional, I'm blanking the term for it, but basically there's parent, adult, and child, and we can shift these during a dynamic. So say you go into work. I learned this from theremin trees on YouTube. Say you go into work and your boss says, you're worthless because you're late. So he is in the parent mode, and he's being authoritative. He's saying, you should have been like this, and or you are like this. And you can either revert to child mode. Adult is like neutral. When somebody tries to step over you, you can either go down into child mode and say, oh, you're right, I'm sorry, or you can go into adult mode and compete that and say, well, no, you don't talk to me like that. And sometimes that can make the other person back down. That still can be a form of manipulation if they back down as well, because then it's like, for instance, after a while of me saying, hey, no, this hurt me. I take responsibility for my half, but this hurt me. We have to talk about this. After so long of trying to pursue, like, hey, let's acknowledge this part, it would immediately switch it to, well, I hate myself and this and that. And we need to still feel bad. We need to still feel bad for me and not what I was feeling at the time. And so this is another thing to recognize. And we in order to get away from that, a huge part of avoiding manipulation is loving ourselves. Because when somebody shits on us, when somebody is rude to us and puts us down, if you love yourself, you're not gonna let what they said affect you, because you're gonna say, you know what, they're calling me stupid, they're calling me worthless, they're calling me ugly, whatever it is. I don't believe that, and I don't need that person. So do you guys find yourselves, if somebody says something shitty to you, and say it's not somebody you're very close to, a close friend whose opinion you really value, say it's just some Joe Schmo or whatever that comes up to you and says something shitty to you. Now, do you take that personally? Like, do you feel like you have a lot of confidence in yourself or self-love to be like, you know what they're saying isn't true and doesn't matter? Or do you fold and feel like you have to succumb to these thoughts and you can't push them away. Similarly, do you relate to the adult-child dynamic? Do you ever find yourself asserting your authority to get other people to back down, or backing down to make somebody to not antagonize somebody else? Do you relate to that parent-child-adult dynamic? If you're at an adult state, then you'll, and this is mentality. This has nothing to do with age. If you're in that adult state, that's whenever you're able to be neutral. If somebody's there's different times where different things are appropriate, but if somebody, say at the grocery store, tries to confront you over something stupid, are you the type of person to disengage and be like, this isn't worth it, this isn't worth something fighting about? Or are you the type of person who is like, I have to stand my ground and tell this person I'm not to be fucked with? Like, how would you react if a stranger just started coming at you and verbally or saying something? I disengage. Oh, hi, Lake. I think that is a very mature thing to do. It's very difficult to not speak up, especially when we're called out in public and we want to not look like a weaker person. I feel like most people are non-confrontational. Yeah, it's hard to get a gauge for like most people, but it sounds like you're right. I feel like most people just find it not worth it. I know there was a time that me and Jacob went to get ice cream, and I kindly asked somebody if they could step back, because this was during the height of the pandemic and everybody was wearing masks and they weren't. And he goes, "For what reason?" And said it very aggressively, and I thought, past me would have been like, well, I'm going to tell this person off. But then at this point in my life, I'm like, this is not worth it. This is just going to cause a scene. We're just here to get ice cream. I'm not going to interact with this person. And of course, they kept trying to poke the bear, but I just didn't let it get to me, and it resolved because they left me alone. It would linger a bit, I'd bet. Adult child happens at work. I recognize myself flip to adult with a teammate, and it's very weird. When my boss expresses a strong opinion, on a design, I flip to child. Yeah, I think it's very interesting, the boss dynamic, because I think because they're in a position of power, we're so much less likely to stand up for ourselves. And even if we were to go to HR isn't your friend. They're going to stand with the person who's greater in power. So it's unfortunately normalized to flip to that child state when we're being treated that way by our bosses, by our superiors. I recognize myself flip to adult when a teammate. So whenever you said you recognize yourself flip to the adult state mentally with a teammate, and you felt that it was weird, what was that scenario, and what was weird about it? There are moments where I believe my idea is right, and I'll be expressing it strongly, and my boss says, we'll do it this way, and I realize I have to agree. Oh, see, I really... I honestly respect the fact that you can deal with that, because unfortunately, I think that's so prevalent in office culture that if you're not a yes man, you just can't advance. And that was something I was really bad at, because I'm very outspoken. And I think there's ways that emotionally, if you're able to just shrug it off and be like, you know what, my boss says this, whatever, and it doesn't get to you, I mean, that's great that you are able to be cut out for that. I personally, do you feel like it, are you used to it? Does it still bother you? Does it get in your head? Do you have any, like, hard feelings about it? Interesting perspective, Louis. Makes sense. But it's okay to be confident and stand up to people in power. Not in a confrontational way, but you have to be confident enough to speak up. I like that a lot. And I think the not doing it in a confrontational way, even it's really hard. There's ways you could just be like, hey, I'm not going to be talked to like this. Whenever you're ready to have a, respective conversation, we'll talk. But right now I'm gonna get back to work. I mean, that's not easy to do. It's really not, especially whenever your boss holds you to such high regard. But I think the way that you have set you're a very diplomatic person, Louis. You really are. And I'm not saying say it verbatim to how I said it, but you deserve to be heard. And sometimes, hell, at my one internship, whenever an actress had a wrinkly shirt, the boss tried to say fix it in post, and we had to be like, dude, it doesn't work like that. Um, but the value that your boss places on you at work and how much he respects you and how much you've proven yourself as an asset, both as taking holding down the fort whenever he had to deal with personal issues, to helping out all of your teammates and putting out fires in ways that other coworkers can't, that gives you leverage to be able to be like, hey, I really, let's talk about this a little bit, you know. Again, I'm not saying definitely do this. I'm saying it's something to consider if you feel like that's right for you. And that's a part of self-love, is getting out of our comfort zone. It's really hard to do that. Even going to a social situation if you're an introvert, things like that, that's a form of self-love. So being able to speak your truth and get out of your comfort zone can be really beneficial to us. And just as a disclaimer, like, you guys have to decide what works best for you, because you know yourself better than I know you. That's just how it is. Let's see. Oh, I missed some messages. Sorry about that. It doesn't happen often, but my mindset is I will state my place, then follow the instructions without fail. Then the liability is not with me if things go wrong. That's really smart, because you're not necessarily being defiant, but you're expressing your truth. That takes a lot of self-love, and that takes a lot of courage and self-respect. And you're building yourself up in a way where it's like, okay, if this goes wrong, my boss is going to look back at this and be like, oh, he was right, I'm going to listen to him more. And I think that's great. You said your boss likes your ideas 99% of the time. That's wonderful. I'm really glad. And I think that's a testament to how much you've proved yourself to your boss, too, that he trusts you like that. Thanks, T. Cassander. Wise words. And thanks, Shorty Pop. T. Cassander says, in my experience, it's something that you have to gauge your relationship with your boss, coworker, or anyone else that you interact with. There is growth in these relationships and the way you interact with those people as your relationships develop, whether it's positive or negative. Yeah, I think that definitely makes sense. Especially if you've tried to interact with a person before and speak your truth on something and they've gotten defensive or projected on you, then you get the idea of, oh, this is not a person that I can trust to open up to because they're going to treat me like this. Or if you have somebody where you've been able to be honest about something and they're very accepting and understanding of how you feel, you're like, oh, this is a person that I have this rapport with, that I know I can speak honestly and truthfully and say what I need to say as, genuinely and respectfully as possible, then you know that you have that positive relationship. So it sounds like that's what you guys have. So we talked a little bit about the ways that we talk to ourselves, and that can have an influence on the way people talk to us. Like, if your boss is putting you down all the time, you might be more likely to put yourself down. If you have a parent, a sibling, a friend, a coworker that puts you down a lot, you might start putting yourself down a lot. And so being around those people has an effect on us. Right, Louie? In the end, your boss has the final say, but it's your duty as part of the organization to give your input. I've always said, without disagreement, you don't have progress. Yeah, definitely. And you're one to stand your ground too, Tika Sander, for sure, because there's been plenty of times where you are right and people doubt you, and the fact that you prove them wrong, and you're not necessarily the type of person to say, like, well, not always, say I told you so. And I think that takes a lot of maturity, because because you're taking a moment to be like, I'm gonna let this person, because, well, I think one thing that I have a lot of respect for you for is, whenever I got into a car accident several years ago and I called you, I thought, oh, he's going to be so disappointed that I got into a car accident. I'm going to get a lecture, this or that. And whenever I saw you, you said, okay, what did you learn? And I said, okay, I learned that if I think I'm going to miss a turn and I don't know if it's my turn or not, and I'm going too fast, to just let myself miss it because it's not worth taking a turn too sharp. And you were like, okay. And that was it. You didn't try to lecture me. And because of that, you showed me that I'm allowed to make a mistake and it's okay, and you're not going to make me feel bad for it. And that's something that's really resonated with me. And I think that is something huge in building self-confidence. And when you surround yourself with people like that, who allow you to feel comfortable making a mistake and not shame you, that's the kind of environment you want to cultivate yourself in, because that's something that you're going to be able to grow. If you feel like you can't make a mistake, then you're going to project that onto yourself anytime you make a mistake, and you're going to project that onto the people whenever they make a mistake. Like, think about how often in traffic somebody cuts you off and you're like, look at this fucking idiot. But then you cut somebody off and you're like, fuck this person, because you don't want to admit that you can make a mistake and it's not okay for other people to make mistakes, because you've surrounded yourself with people that make you feel like mistakes are the worst thing, but you're human. Yes, T. Cassandra, I was a nervous person in the workplace, but I finally have that trust with teammates. And it's my favorite part of the job. I think a sign of a good job is when, quote, your complaints are earnestly valued. I don't know how you did that emoji, but I love it. I need to get custom emojis for my channel eventually. I'll look into that. I was a nervous person in the workplace, but I finally found my boss is downright relieved when I start talking about problems I see down the line. Well, I think that's great. I think coworkers and their receptiveness to your ideas, and just coworkers' receptiveness to other people's ideas, is what cultivates a good workplace. And coworkers and bosses can make or break a workplace. So the fact that you find yourself in that situation is really something to be grateful for. And that's also another part of getting through these past experiences, being able to let go because you love yourself enough to, and recognizing, practicing being grateful. And it doesn't matter if you're religious or not. Like, some people might pray and say, like, oh, thanks, whatever higher being you believe in, thank you for this thing in my life, thanks for that thing in my life. But even if you're not religious, you can think to yourself, you know what, I'm really grateful for my friends, I'm really grateful for my job, whatever it is in your life. Even if you can't think of anything that day, but you had, like, you had a day that everything went fine, or you got to sit down and relax or have a good meal, taking moments to be like, wow, I'm really glad I did this for myself. But that's a form of self-love. And whenever you respect yourself like that and care for yourself like that, you're going to be less prone to being around people that make you feel shitty, because you're treating yourself. You're showing yourself how you deserve to be treated. You're not just needing that from other people. So do you find yourself, like, how do you, I mean, you Louis, you were saying about how people treat you. Do you talk to yourself with that kind of respect? Like, whenever you see other people valuing your opinion, do you, you mentioned about being able to stand up for yourself. Your internal monologue when you're by yourself, or you're having these ruminating thoughts, in what ways do you think of yourself? Like, do you think these negative thoughts, or do you guys call yourself names or anything like that? Like, how do you make a habit of talking to yourself? There's a lot of little ways that we can build up self-love for ourselves. And I mean, it sounds so cliche, but things like controlling our spending, stopping smoking, eating right, blocking apps that might be distracting, getting your body moving in ways that feel good, like going for a walk. Like, it sounds so cliche, but making a little habit, just little steps, like, even if you don't want to go to the gym or make a big commitment, being like, oh, once or twice a week I'll try going for a walk. That kind of stuff really helps build you up and makes you feel good, because it's not, the days aren't blurring together. You're taking these times to do loving things for yourself. Take yourself on dates. It's not weird to go out to eat by yourself or go to the movies by yourself. I don't know why it is. It's weird that that seems like a social abnormality. But it's really good to do for you. It's changing the past it's changing the past 8 months because of therapy. I had a history of being hard on myself. If that happens, I'm in the pattern of reversing anything derogatory I think about myself, and it's become less often or less common that I'm more likely to think positively. Actually, that is amazing, and that is a tactic I've been working on myself is reframing. That's how my therapist referred to that tactic. So say you think to yourself, oh, this person is doing so much better in life than me. Uh, Taking a moment to be, you had that negative thought, and taking a moment to be like, you know what? I'm happy for this person. They seem to be doing well. Uh, and good on them. And here's some things that I feel good about myself about. So you're turning that into a positive thing. And that's I would gauge my feelings about myself by the reactions of others around me. I think that that's I think that that is good depending the people that you surround yourself with. If you're surrounding yourself with people who are honest to you and who treat you with love and respect, that's brilliant because if you feel like you're dumb but everybody around you is calling you smart and they mean it and you know that the people around you are honest, then it's like, yeah. But if you're friends with assholes and then they're like, "Oh, you're an idiot, you're an asshole, or you're whatever," if they're constantly jabbing you and making you feel bad, like say you express your feelings and they call you gay, it's like, well, that's not a good friend. Those are people's opinions that you can't take in high regard. So if you have like real friends in your life and you know that you do, then that's a really great way to gauge, like, okay, like if I was being an asshole, my friends would call me out on it, that kind of thing. Poison says, I see. And then Tika Sanders says, but I agree. I tend to hold myself to high standards, and I have become disappointed in myself in cases where others may view me as successful. Um, Tika Sander, I'm curious. Well, all of you actually. If have you guys ever heard of the term imposter syndrome? Now, this is a more clinical term, but it doesn't necessarily. You don't necessarily have to be like, okay, I have this diagnosis or whatever, this disorder. It's a term to describe when we see ourselves as fraudulent, not as good as what other people think we are, or we think, oh, the only reason we're where we're at is because we got lucky or we got help from other people and it has nothing to do with my hard work. Like, do you, and does it make you nervous whenever people say like you are successful? Like, do you think if somebody, Tika Sander, if somebody says like, hey, you're successful, is your first thought to be like, no, I'm not? Like, what is typically the first thing that comes to your mind? Or if it's not always that this thought comes to your mind that you're not really successful, what do you think sparks that thought in your head whenever you do hear that, when it does come up, that you feel the need to diminish your value, or underestimate yourself? Tika Sanders says 100%, and Louis says yes, absolutely. And Chad says, I've heard of imposter syndrome. Yeah, that's something that we really, it's a shame that we do that to ourselves, because we should be a friend to ourselves. And a way to be a friend to yourself is just like you'd be friends with another person. Like, use kind words to yourself, and just like you'd hug a friend or put your arm on the back of a friend's hand back whenever they're going through something, like, hey, I get it, it's okay, whatever you would do, don't be afraid to do that to yourself. If you're having a bad day and maybe you're by yourself or whatever, like, just rubbing your shoulder, or rubbing your hand or holding your hand, doing some sort of self-comfort, self-soothing thing, that kind touch, those kind words. You don't just have to do that to other people. Doing that for yourself is you have to love spending time with yourself. It's very hard to get to that point, and it doesn't matter what age you are. You might not be at that point, but when you get to that point, it's going to be a lot more freeing, and it's not going to be stagnant. Sometimes you'll feel more that way, and sometimes you won't feel that love for yourself. But trying to aim to feel that way most of the time, that's a more plausible goal. Um, I think I'm legitimately successful in their eyes, but I feel like sometimes I'm not living up to my potential. Well, I think in your case, you were in a situation that was a very safe, sturdy corporate lifestyle. And I think in terms of expectations, you're told your whole life you have to have this job, this high up job, this corporate job, this well respected whatever. You have to be in this position, you have to get these benefits, you got to be on salary. And you were told, like, oh, your business might fail, your business this, your business that, and put down. And whenever you were finally pushed out, like whenever you got laid off, that was a huge turning point for you because you did realize your potential. And it's whenever, and you, the thing is I think you definitely started to value yourself more after that. After you got out of a bad relationship and got with somebody who treats you well, you started valuing yourself more. After you got out of a bad job and started working for yourself and building up a thing that you're passionate about, that gave you more love for yourself. And I think with what you're explaining about how what you've told me about how you're expanding your business, like, because you're not in your own way anymore, you're going to see yourself get to that potential. And it's not just about, getting to that point to unlock your whole potential. It's the journey too, because look at how far you've come, and the person that you wouldn't be if you didn't go through the struggles or the setbacks that you did, and how much more you can appreciate your success. And all of the business tactics that you probably learned throughout your time working at that office is only going to help you even more. Now that you've moved on from that part of your life, you're going to use the things that you learned there in building your own business. Because, I mean, you've built it up so fast in the past 2 years that you've gotten laid off. It's insane. Looking back now, the corporate situation was holding me back. You are so right. Absolutely. And you are in a good way, you're an outspoken person. When you see somebody not being treated right, for sure. And whenever you see somebody not treated right, or if you, like, you stick up for people. You're a very caring person, and you don't put up with bullshit. And being put in a corporate environment where everything that you know is right for you, you're getting torn down or told that isn't right, that's going to crush your self-esteem, your self-value, and you don't deserve to be shouted at in front of your coworkers. Like, nobody deserves to be treated that way. And the people there didn't see the value in you that you really have. And so now all of that fruitful labor is coming forward, and you're like, wow, like, there's nothing holding you back now. And not only was that corporate environment holding you back, but that fear of leaving that corporate environment. Sometimes we get in our own way, and by things happening outside our control, me getting laid off from a job that made me feel down about myself because of the environment I was in, I had to get pushed out of that situation. It wasn't my choice, but it was a good thing that happened for me. Actually, Jacob was telling me the story, and he doesn't remember all the details of it, but essentially it's a bad thing would happen, and everyone would say, oh, that's horrible that happened to you. And he'd say, maybe. And each time that happened, something amazing would come from that would be better than he ever dreamed. And I think that's exactly what happened to you, is, whenever you did get laid off, we were talking about, this isn't really a bad thing. You got a severance, you got unemployment because of the pandemic, and you had a job that, because you were running your own business in a field that was an essential business, everything worked out really well for you. When before that, you were working in an industry that was falling under because of economic reasons. So everything about your situation now has gotten much better, and taking that time to be grateful for where you've come because of certain circumstances in life that just brought us this way, or the hard work that you've done, uh, that that does so much for our self-esteem, definitely. um Also, that self-compassion helps you have the energy to help others too. uh like, if you're ruminating all day and you're spending all this time being angry at somebody, you're going to be exhausted. That takes so much mental energy to harbor onto this anger and hate. And whenever you let go of that, and whenever you're able to step out of that, you're able to have so much more energy to put into the things you love. One, because you're not exhausted putting all this emotional weight on yourself, but two, you're not wasting time thinking about it. And so like, as Tika Sanders said, unlocking that potential. And we're going to go into more stuff about avoiding rumination, but this is more in the realm of self-love, because that's the biggest part of avoiding being manipulated and avoiding putting ourselves in bad situations. It's knowing our own value by treating ourselves with love. And a few reminders. Well, the benefits the benefits of this self-love, we grow. And studies show that self-compassion, like I said before, you can work longer. But this self-criticism, it causes that depression. It causes that hopelessness. We're exhausted because we just put ourselves down. And when we accept responsibility for the parts that we could be doing better rather than placing it all on the other person, that's another way to release that weight that we put on ourselves. Like, how many of you find yourself, whenever you've gotten into an altercation with somebody else, or like, Tika Sander, with your old boss, the way that they treated you, like, do you find yourself ruminating about that and still, like, thinking of things you wish you would have said to your old boss? Or do you find yourself being like, here's some things I could have done better, here's some things they could have done better, but at the end of the day, it's in the past? Like, where do you find yourself in that spectrum? Because it might not be the same feeling every day, or it might not be one or the other. It might be somewhere in between. But whenever you think back to your old place, do you have this hostility in your mind and your heart? Not at all. Well, that's great. I think that's really impressive, and that takes a lot of maturity to be able to do that. That is something I really struggle with, not thinking back to my job or having resentments from my previous job. It's very difficult for me to let that go, and that's something I've really been working on. So the fact that you've gotten to that point is huge, because there's people that it's really hard, especially if you're somebody who isn't an introspective person. That kind of thing is really hard. And you might wonder, like, why are we prone to manipulation or being in situations where we allow ourselves to be treated badly? Maybe you're codependent. If you think that if you feel that you depend on another person, did you get a lot of people who are codependent, they didn't get raised with a healthy self-esteem, and so they seek validation. Like, do you guys relate to that, where you feel like you grew up not having a sense of a healthy self-esteem, or not being taught that, so you feel like you need other people? I'm totally at peace with it all. I gave it my all, but I wasn't appreciated. And look how much your customers appreciate you now. And I appreciate you too. Like, you're not a person that holds things over my head. If you do nice things to me, you just do nice things because you're a kind person. And I tell people that too. I tell people how kind you are, because that is who you are. It's the truth. I'm pretty good these days, although it's funny. Once in a while, I'll recall a random embarrassing memory from over 10 years ago and think, dang, why did I do that? Yeah, and it's so funny, I did that as well. Like, there's so much from, like, high school, like, from, God, over a decade ago, that I would hold against myself. And I'm thinking, nobody else is sitting there thinking, oh, Shorty Pop did this in high school, what a fucking weirdo. Because it's like, if they are thinking about that, it's like, bro, do you not have other stuff going on? Or they might there's people I've talked to from high school that they're totally cool with me that I thought like would never want to talk to me back in high school. So, people's opinion, people don't see, or there's been things I hold against myself and think, oh, I said this in front of a friend, they probably hate me. Months later, after ruminating it, I brought it up to a couple of my friends, and they were like, I literally didn't take it that way at all. And I'm like, it's so funny because I beat myself up over something that they didn't even think twice about. And I'm confident in the measurable accomplishments that I've made there. Oh, absolutely. You've saved the company freaking millions of dollars. They definitely didn't appreciate you as much as they should have. Yeah, Louie, I've had those types of thoughts all the time. In all types of situations. But that's just part of growing in life. You learn from those memories. Yeah, that's a wonderful point. Actually, that reminds me, I was listening to a thing on Hidden Brain, which is an NPR program, that talked about regret. And the toxic type of regret is when we look at ourselves and been like, we should have done this, we should have done this, or I wish I would have done this. There's nothing we can do to go back in the past to change that. So every time you get that memory, you're going to feel terrible. So taking a moment to reframe it and be like, hey, I learned from this. Or there was an instance where I was at a party and I wasn't totally sober, and I thought to myself, this was a bad idea. And I thought to myself, I'll just know my limits next time, and I'm just still going to enjoy the ride and have a good time. And that's what I did, and all my friends had a great time. I didn't project this regret. I didn't project this worry. And so I was able to enjoy myself, because people can pick up on how you feel. Yeah, very true. V Falcon 6 says, there were also probably weirdos in high school, too, because everyone is. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And everybody has their own life. Like, people aren't sitting around thinking about us as much as we think. And if they are, it's like, that's on them. I stopped being friends with somebody recently, and I thought to myself, oh, they're going to sit around, they're going to think I'm the bad guy. And then I told Jacob about it, and he's like, well, of course they are. There's no other world where they're not going to think that. But that doesn't have anything to do with you. You don't have to worry about what other people think. Just control how you think. And I thought, wow, that's brilliant. Don't think, oh, I want something bad to happen to this person. I want karma. I want this or that. If you are putting yourself down, you're only hurting yourself if you're thinking bad about another person or wishing ill on them. And if you're wishing ill on them, you haven't gotten through it. You haven't gotten past it. You're still holding on to that. So, another thing is, sometimes we have a tendency to blame our parents, but it's not always the parents' fault. Or if we see a kid that's acting like an asshole, that's not always the parents' fault. If we can do validations for ourselves, we won't become codependent. But if we can't, that's how it becomes. We draw ourselves to these people who treat us like shit. Maybe they love bomb us, and then we start to seek their attention when that love bomb goes away. Whenever you get to that point of self-validation, you'll be able to live with yourself and self-soothe and validate your own feelings and not judge your feelings. A huge thing is, and this is so crucial, when you get those thoughts of, oh, this person said this shitty thing to me and I would have said this and told them off. If you tell yourself, oh, don't think about that anymore, get that out of your head. Well, what are you most likely to think about? If I say, don't think about a zebra with boobs, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? You're going to think of a zebra with boobs. Whenever we tell our minds, don't think of this, our brain is constantly like, oh, what are we not supposed to think of? Oh, yeah, that. Okay, don't think of that. And then it just keeps coming up. So if we try to push these feelings down, if you've seen Inside Out, you know how important it is to still experience emotions to a healthy degree. So if you get this thought of, okay, time to think about this thing you would have said to this person, talk to the thought and say, you know what? I recognize that you're here. I recognize that you want my attention, but not today. You don't do anything for me. You have no value to me. Tell the thought that. Because then you're acknowledging it. You're not saying no and trying to shake it away. You're just letting it come and saying, you know, I don't have any use for you. You're not doing anything for me. I know you want my attention, but you don't get it. And that is empowering. The more that you do that, the less power that thought has. And just like Louis was saying, when you keep reframing your brain will stop going to that. It just takes time and practice. So the fact, Tika Sandra, the fact that you've gotten to that point already is huge. Very true. You're also, oh yeah, sorry, I already read those. Yeah, and a few things to remember before I go on is, it's hard to think of it this way, but, and this sounds crass, this sounds harsh, but at the end of the day, and maybe this could be freeing to you, at the end of the day, your happiness is your own responsibility. You know, if you're in a relationship, you can't say, well, you make me happy. It's your responsibility to make yourself happy and then share that joy with another person. Your happiness is your own responsibility, and not everyone has to agree with you. I think that's something else that, like, how many of you, okay, be honest, how many of you have been on social media, somebody says a political thing that you don't agree with, and you're ruminating over that. You're waiting until they respond on Facebook or Twitter just so you can be ready with your snarky remark back, and oh, I bet they'll feel like I got them. They won't. They don't feel like that. They'll just say something else shitty back, or they'll block you, or they won't give you the last word, whatever it is. How many of you find yourself engaging in that because you feel like other people should agree with you? It doesn't help. Yep, been there, still there. Oh shit, yep. It sucks you in. It sucks you in. And for those of you who have been there or are still there, how many times have you actually changed somebody's mind and they thought, somebody who's so far off the deep end, you know, completely changed their mind and said, you know what, you're right. How many times has that actually happened where you change somebody's mind on the internet? I mean, you know, we're more likely to change our friends' minds, but if you change political things are something we identify with, you know, even like brands, you know, oh, I'm a Nike guy, I'm an Apple person, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, whatever you identify as, that becomes your identity. And when people aren't that, when they don't align with that, it feels like they're against a part of ourselves, and we feel the need to assert that. But at the end of the day, it just hurts us, because we can't expect everybody to feel the same way about everything as we do. And it makes sense to get pissed off about that. The political climate today is infuriating. You know, you look at the news and you're like, what the fuck is going on with the world? But it's like, I mean, sure, some of us have the privilege of not having to worry about what's going on in the news, and some of us have to worry every day about what's going on in the news, what's going on in Texas, everything like that. And it's not to say, oh, none of that matters and your feelings don't matter, but how much time have you spent arguing with somebody, and how much stress has that caused you? Like, genuinely, that's not just a rhetorical, like, if you had to look back, how much time do you think that you've spent arguing with somebody, or being angry even out of that moment that somebody didn't feel the same way about something as you? And we do that in arguments too, even if it's not political. Like, somebody treated us in a way and we can't get over that, and we just want to keep hammering it in and arguing with somebody who's not perceptive, who doesn't care about us enough to listen to our side. And then you keep having these conversations thinking they're going to change that person. You can't. And if I think another thing that, and how many of you guys, if a friend has a problem, or somebody close to you, whatever, has a problem, you make it your own problem, and you start worrying about it in time that maybe you're not even around your friend, but you're like, oh, I'm worried about this thing, and you're stressing out over things that aren't your own problems. Oh, I think I more so create discourse to affirm my own ideas for myself. Okay. I think that's really interesting, because you want to do this to affirm the ideas for yourself, but it sounds like, and I'm speaking to you this way because I know how receptive you are to these things and how open-minded you are. I'm wondering, it sort of sounds like you don't have enough trust in yourself to just believe how you feel. And so you have to validate it to other people. But, you don't need to prove anything to anybody. Oh, thank you for the follow, SK0Z. I'm gonna, Scoos? Thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. So yeah, Lake, I'm interested to hear your spicy take on that. Like, do you feel, because I know you did say, you do that for feelings for yourself. Do you feel like if you had more faith in yourself and more confidence in your beliefs and just in the knowledge, like, okay, I trust myself enough to know who I am and what I believe, do you feel like you would have that same urge to go forth and be like, no, I'm not going to spend my time, or I have to put all this time into proving this to somebody? Do you think you would do less of that if you had more confidence in yourself? And I think that sort of, the difference between talking, if you're self-critical, you think that you can be perfect. That's what we think. If we're self-critical and say we should be working harder, then you imagine yourself, if I keep doing this, I'll be perfect. Or if you say, I got to go to the gym and eat right and I'll look like this magazine, I got to do this. Whatever perception of perfection that you have, it's not real, it's not tangible. You're going to keep moving the goalpost no matter where you're at in life. Do you have that, do you guys have that feeling where you feel like there is some sort of achievable goal and that you're just not trying hard enough? Gotta jump off, but I avoid Got to jump off, but I enjoyed the session. Keep up the good work. Aw, thank you. I appreciate it. I really appreciate your support and coming on. Thanks for being a first-time viewer and for supporting this channel, and being a part of this community and being so encouraging. You've been a really great addition to the space, and I hope to see you again. And all of you guys that joined today, all of you guys that followed today, I really appreciate you, and we couldn't do this without you. And that's so hard. Love you. Yeah. I'm really glad for you guys coming today, and it says a lot that we can all relate to this, because I think as people, it's really hard, as part of the human experience, it's really hard to accept the fact that we're not, perfect. It's not possible. Jacob had, this is sort of on topic, but sort of not. Yeah, it is. There's a System of a Down song, and I'm sure you guys have heard it. Chop Suey. It's like, grab a brush, put on a little makeup. You wanted to. You know what? I'm gonna look up the lyrics. Okay, we're gonna go through this in a second. Wake up, grab a brush and put on a little makeup. Hide the scars to fade away the shake-up. Why'd you leave the kids up on the table? Here you go, create another fable. And so an interesting analysis of that. OMG. OMG to what? The Chop Suey reference? Jacob said that this is a reference to the human experience. So grab a brush, put on a little makeup, hide the scars to fade away the shake-up. That's what we do. We have to view ourselves as we do this, where it's like, we can't let anybody see our imperfections. This whole intro it's talking about the human experience, the difficulties of the human experience. We have to hide our scars. We have to have everybody think that we're perfect. We have to present ourselves a certain way. Why'd you leave the keys up on the table? We get in our minds because we're getting in our heads over stuff that doesn't matter, that we're not being present in the moment. It's like, why did I leave that? Why did I forget that? Because you're not being in the moment. Great to see you having time for the peoples. Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I could talk about nothingness and stuff for life. What do you mean in talking about nothingness? like in relation to this, like the community, like the chat, um like the fact that I'm talking in chat, or like what this space is. um yeah, I mean, I and also first time chat from viewer. Thanks for joining in. I appreciate it. And I would love to hear your thoughts on the stream too. It's really good to have new people here. um Oh, with the lyrics, the last part of it is, here you go, create another fable. Because we are so protective of ourselves, so worried of what other people think, we create lies about ourselves, not necessarily, oh, like outwardly lying, but we lie to ourselves. And we want to hide our perfections from other people. We lie to ourselves like, no, I'm not this way. Or if you lie to yourself and call yourself a piece of shit, it's like deep down, it's like, you're not. Don't lie to yourself and build yourself up in ways that aren't true and say, oh, I'm the shit, I'm the greatest. And don't lie to yourself and say I'm a piece of shit, because both of those aren't true. It's so black and white. Not about that, but about, I find my life wandering through nothingness. I want to find myself somewhere there. In what ways do you find yourself through nothingness? Like, I'm thinking it's I don't know like what your life story is or where you're at, so I'm interested to hear like what things. Are there times in your life where you do feel like fulfilled, or you feel like maybe you know the direction you want to go in? Do you feel like the days just blur together, or that you don't know where you're going? Or are there people or instances that happen around you that spark this thought of nothingness, or spark this feeling that you're not where you're supposed to be? And what triggers this feeling? And I'm curious who else relates to this. I think a lot of us can have a tendency to be overly conscientious. Like, how many of you guys, if you feel like maybe you're not doing enough, I think that's a big part of why people can feel nothingness, why people can feel directionless, because we're so self-critical that we feel like we're not doing enough. Who else feels that way, or who lets the fear of feeling like we're not doing enough harm yourself? I mean, it's okay to feel a certain way, like feel it out, don't suppress it, but working your way through the emotion of like, why do I feel this way? And not being critical of the thoughts that come to your mind, but just feeling it through and observing your thoughts. I've had success and failures, but I didn't feel nothing. I want to have something that makes me feel like a normal person. But feeling like a normal person isn't a good thing, absolutely. I'm curious what you mean by normal person. Like, what in your eyes would you define as normal? And why do you feel like it's not good? It's not necessarily good to feel that way. And I respect. It sounds like you're thinking in terms of a spectrum rather than black and white. Instead of saying like being, quote unquote normal is always good, or being quote unquote normal is always bad. I think that takes a lot of maturity to be able to look at it in the way that you're looking at it, and being like, okay, well, maybe this might be a temporary ideal, or I may view this as something that's great, but also being aware that like, okay, this has its downsides. I'm really interested to hear more of your thoughts on that, and where you're coming from in that regard. Um, and in that note, it's important to know what you want and what you feel and what you think and feel comfortable saying it, because I feel like, oh, I missed your comment, Louie. You said, I feel like I wasn't doing enough for a long time. It's another thing that's improving with affirmations. Well, yeah, from what you've been telling me, you've been doing a great job at building yourself up and giving yourself that validation. And I mean, as we've talked about in the past, that's so crucial because the more you validate yourself, the less that you have to depend on other people because you have that confidence in yourself. And I think in today's quote unquote hustle culture, everybody says, "Oh, you got to have a side hustle. Oh, good job. You're working this many hours. That's great." Well, not necessarily. Your value is not defined by how much you're doing. And like you've said before, like now you take a day or so a week where you don't have anything planned, you don't do anything, you just do whatever you want to do. And that is a great habit to get into, and that's something I wish I did more, is being like, you know what, today's a free space day. Feeling like a normal person isn't a good thing, absolutely. I'm gonna turn the AC up a little bit. If you guys can hear the AC at all, let me know. It's just a little spicy in this room. Whoop. Okay. People who like work 9 to 15 and that, they try to ridicule me because I don't work the normal hours. Some of my friends don't want to know me because I don't do the same things I do. Wow. Or same things that they do. Yeah, it's those people sound very close-minded, and I mean, the 9 to 5 job is not the end all be all, and it doesn't necessarily, make you happy. I thought to myself, when I had a very sporadic schedule, I thought to myself, God, I wish I had a 9 to 5 so I knew when I was working all the time, blah, blah, blah. And then whenever I actually did have a 9 to 5, I'm like, it never feels like the weekends are long enough. It's so hard for me to get shit done in a day because any doctor's appointment is when I'm at work. These people that think that they're better than you because they work a job that you don't, it's like, those are the same. I mean, look at how the pandemic changed our views of jobs. We went from thinking of cashiers as, oh, that's a starter job, that's a job for teenagers, to, wow, this is an essential business, we need this. Heroes work here, this and that, and it's like people. It's so arbitrary how people view success, and I remember whenever I had a job in my field, somebody said, "Oh, I have this job and I don't like it." And I said, "Well, you can make any job what you want it to be if you're not happy." And they said, "Well, that's easy for you to say. You have a job in your major." And it's like, well, that doesn't necessarily make me happy. That's just a job at the end of the day. These people that think, "Oh, thank you for taking oh, I'm sorry, I just noticed your other messages." Sometimes, and also, real quick before you go, those friends don't sound like real friends. I mean, I don't know your relationship with them, but they don't deserve. Maybe they're great, and the only shitty thing is they talk like they're better than you or whatever, But you don't deserve to be treated like that, and you have value no matter what your job. The important thing is that you're happy. BTW, thank you for taking your time for me. My English is always because second language. I was always insulted about the way my friends acted towards me. I'm in the forestry business and did 16 hours per day, which, holy shit, that's so much hard work, and that's like not a lot of people could do that. It's a lot of hard work, heavy lifting, being out in nature, bug bite, like you're dealing with the elements. So I just said they don't know anything what I do. Well, good. It sounds like you had the courage to stand up for yourself and the self-awareness to see the value in what you do. And I mean, that goes a lot in line with what we've been saying about self-love, and keep practicing that. And I don't want to hold you up if you have to get going. But I hope to see you again. My streams are always on Wednesday, 8 to 10 p.m. So if you want to join next time, you're more than welcome. And thanks for coming to this community and opening up. And that took a lot of bravery. And I'm really glad that you enjoyed your time here and you got something out of it. And hope to see you next week. Have a great night. Thank you very much. Yeah. See ya. Get hearts. Um, Chad says, what time zone? Oh, Eastern Standard Time. So right now it's 9 p.m. where I'm at. So that's Eastern Standard Time. I'm from Finland. Let's see. What time is it in Finland? It is 4:19 a.m. Oh, wow. Yeah, you're up really late. So this would start at 3 a.m. for you and go until 5 a.m. for you. So if you are a night owl, and which it seems like you are, and you happen to be up that time, definitely pop in if you have the time. Chad says, as someone who works in retail, that was a very strange change. Alright, just woke up, going to work. Oh, okay. Well, have a great day at work, and know that you are doing a badass job at what you do, and what you do has a lot of value. So kick some ass today, and keep on keeping on. All right. So Chad, to what you said about working in retail and that being a huge change. So my understanding is you work similar to a 9 to 5, right? What I don't remember what hours the stores are open, but is that similar to a 9 to 5 type job? Or is that more sporadic? Thank you. See you next time. See ya. Appreciate you guys. Yeah. Chad, so in what way was that really strange to you, and how do you view your schedule now? Like, do you feel like you have enough free time, and do you feel like you have enough control over your time? Um, and I think that comes from also knowing what you want. You know, you have to pick what's right for you. If a 9 to 5 stability regular job works for you, then if that works for you, that's great. For me, I like being my own boss. I like choosing my own hours. I like working late and staying up late. And not everybody can be their own boss. Not everybody can do that. So that's perfect for some people, but not for others. It's pretty sporadic. We were talking about how job shaming changed a bunch during the pandemic. Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. It is insane. Um, And you know what else is funny is there were people who were, on OnlyFans, and they were getting all kinds of shit for being, women making money off their body. And it's like, well, you know what? Some people are supporting their kids with this. Some people are finding confidence in themselves doing this. Why are we shaming one person's work? They're finding a way to make it through the pandemic. I know one girl who started an OnlyFans and started also doing sugaring. She had a kid to support, and she couldn't get any clients because of the pandemic, because she was doing something in not a government job, but something, and unemployment was giving her like $200 a week or $200 a month. $200 a week ain't shit. You can't live off of that and support a child and be a single parent. No. So yeah, job shaming in general, I mean, you're totally right. Like, it's just, it's insane to think about. And I'm glad that perspective is starting to change. Yeah. And so we were talking about rumination too, and having these thoughts go in our mind over and over again of replaying what we could do better. That's what rumination is whenever we're stewing in this hate, when we're stewing in this anger, thinking of things we wish we said, instances you mistreated someone where you fantasize of being the victor, for you guys that have talked about doing this, uh, how long have you found yourself doing this? Like, what's the longest sort of rumination that you've noticed yourself having? Like, do you feel like it's taken years or maybe a short time? Like, how fast do you see yourself getting over these issues, or are you still getting over them? A really good analogy that I liked a lot is it's a guest analogy. So whenever we think of somebody that's putting us down and we're letting them into our mind, we're giving them that free rent space in our head. Imagine if that person just showed up on your doorstep. You're in the middle of eating dinner, completely unannounced, your house isn't tidy, and this person that's treating you like shit just shows up in your doorstep. Are you going to be like, come on in? Come on, grab a plate, go ahead, make yourself at home? Or are you going to be like, dude, what are you doing here? You didn't get invited, get out. You wouldn't let them in your house, so why do we do that where we let them in our head? That we talked about saying, I acknowledge this thought, but I have no use for you. That's the same as telling that in that analogy, that guest that's coming to your doorstep uninvited. That's the same way of having the power of being like, no, you're not. And the more you do that, when we're not working against ourselves, we maintain this internal harmony, and these thoughts lose their power. We start to maintain a neutral position. It's important not to think of ourselves completely as the villain or completely as the victim. When we maintain this neutral position, I mean, it's much easier said than done, and I don't mean to minimize or say everybody just needs to get over anything. That's not what I'm saying at all. But for yourself, finding forgiveness for somebody else or for yourself, we do that for yourself. I have to catch myself ruminating in order to break the pattern. Otherwise, I'll run a million simulations of a conversation different every time. And I'm curious. So whenever you do catch yourself, what do you do in those moments to try to stop yourself? Or do you find yourself catching yourself and then not being able to stop? Like, how do you respond to these thoughts coming in? Whenever you say you're catching yourself, what does that mean? What does that entail for you? And actually, this was a two-parter because I did a lot of extra research last time. So I've gotten through a lot of the notes that I wrote down. I'm like, is there a better way to use my time? See, I think that's great that you think that. And you're totally right. There is it's the same with this addictive social media. You ever wake up and you just are scrolling like, miles on your phone and thinking, I used to do things. And social media is that addictive sort of anger too. We look at a post and we say, fuck this person. I'm going to comment. I'm going to angry react. I'm going to share this and say, hey, everybody, fuck your opinion. It's that same sort of letting that take us over and realizing, hey, there's better things that we could be doing than getting angry over a post or getting angry over something somebody said or imagining that. I can be relaxing or enjoying myself or working on a problem I can actually solve in the moment. I think that's great. That is a huge part to better mental health is mindfulness. There was this kid that told me that his school had this class called mindfulness, and I think that that's great. I think this should be in schools more. And he said that there was one instance where they had to eat a chocolate bar, but every step of the way was a long, drawn-out process. So just unwrapping it, peeling all of the wrapping off of the chocolate bar, you're being aware in that whole moment. You can't focus on doing something because we're just so used to doing stuff fast. To do something slowly is to take every effort. Like, imagine trying to walk or talk in slow motion. I played a game where one of the prompts was for the rest of the game or for the next round you have to talk in slow motion, and I couldn't focus on that because I wasn't being in the moment. I just was doing what I normally do. And so whenever we take a moment to slow down, it's impossible to well, not impossible, but it's much harder to get into our heads because we're putting all of our focus on, okay, don't do this too quickly, stretch this out for 3 minutes, taking that first bite, tasting the chocolate. He said that that experience really awakened him into mindfulness. So think of ways in your life, like whatever you enjoy a meal, is it possible for you to set your phone in the other room and just eat and not look at a screen, not think about something else? How can we mindfully doing the dishes, going for a drive? You know, I don't understand how people can just. I'll ask Jacob. I'll be like, "What are you thinking about?" And they'll be like, "Nothing." I'm like, "How the fuck are you not thinking about anything? I wish I could turn my brain off." Do you guys relate to that? Like, do you feel like it's hard to shut your brain off and stop thinking about something? Or are you the exact opposite, where you feel like you always have racing thoughts, like you wish you could turn your brain off? I know somebody that said the only time that they could turn their brain off was when they smoked weed, and it gave them that relief. Yep, I can't stop thinking about it unless I'm meditating and in practice. See, I think that that's amazing that you're able to do that, because I think meditation, it's so fucking hard to do. Because you constantly have to be aware. You have to constantly deny that urge to think about something else. Hell, there's times where I'll be like, I'm going to sit down and watch a TV show, and then I'll think about something, and I'm like, no, I'm going to think about this now. And I'll pause the show to fucking think about something. I'm like, what am I doing? You know, it's so since you have been practicing meditation for a while, and you're getting into the groove of it, and it seems to be working for you, I'm interested if you could share your tips of how do you block out these thoughts? How do you focus your mind on not thinking about anything and pushing these unwanted thoughts away, pushing in these sporadic racing thoughts? In what ways, what practices do you use to push these thoughts out of your mind? Because I'm definitely curious. That's something I try to do a lot of research before my streams so that I know exactly what I'm going to talk about. I can speak on a topic at length, and I can offer you guys something to think about and hear your guys' perspectives on it. And just as much as I hope you guys learn from this and learn from each other, I want to learn from you guys. I think the key is not being absolute or quote unquote blocking, pushing. These terms are all too aggressive. The other key is self-love. That's amazing. I think that goes totally in line with what we've been talking about with, I mean, you mentioned self-love. I never thought of, I understand self-love in the context of it being helpful in avoiding situations where we're mistreated or where we allow that, but I didn't think about that in the context of how it can help us clear our minds. And that's a great way of phrasing it too, like not pushing it out, not resisting it. So you said you kind of just let thoughts flow, but you're almost giving each thought a little attention. Is this thought worth consideration right now? Wow. Can I like highlight comments? How can I highlight a comment? I'm just going to put 100. And then that way that'll kind of be highlighted. So whenever I scroll back through this, I'm going to highlight that and put it on a big fat sticky note and slap that shit right on my wall. Because that is fucking... That's the quote of the day today. A lot of thoughts can be pleasant or insightful, so you entertain them for a bit. Okay. So, like, what thoughts do you view as pleasant and worth thinking about? Like, might this be, like, you know, future goals or things that you're excited about in the future? Like, what thoughts do you find are helpful? I find that really difficult to dissect because if I find myself excited about something in the future, then there's still... I know that we were talking about not judging emotions, but I feel this guilt for thinking about something that's not in the present moment. And I'm curious if you guys relate to that. And then you find space in between thoughts. That's what meditation is like for me. Wow. That's really interesting. It could be music from 20 years ago or the last time I saw a friend that made me grin from ear to ear. Wow, I love that. Just thinking about positive memories. Um, I like also sometimes I'll have a thought pop into my mind of somebody that I'm not friends with anymore, but something that they did or said that was funny or meant a lot to me. And I think sometimes we can have a habit if we lose a friend to think of all the good times we had with them, and instead of just feeling good about thinking about those positive warm thoughts, we feel bad at the loss of that relationship or that friendship. And that's something that really only hurts us because we're not focusing on, I mean, it almost sounds like it almost sounds cliche, but a really amazing saying that I really hold true to my heart and really have to be more aware of, and I hope this helps you as well, is it's the journey, not the destination. This time in I mean that's sort of been a reoccurring theme for today, getting past things and every shitty thing, everything that happened to you that you might think is shitty, or or vice versa. I mean that those shitty thoughts, well, that's something that help you grow as a person, or something where it's like, oh, this person, I had this great time with them and now they're out of my life, or if you might think, oh, this person did all of these terrible things, you know, painting this person one way or another, it's like you're harboring this anger if you think of all the terrible things somebody's done, and you're going to focus on and fixate on that, and it's going to distract you from the present moment. Or if you focus on, oh, we had these good times and I'm going to ignore the bad times and just focus on what I've lost, then you're hurting yourself too. It's really hard to find that middle ground in finding that neutrality, but that sounds like that's what you're talking about, Louis, is just saying, whenever you say, is this thought worth my attention right now? You could think of that, you could have that thought of, here's a good memory with this person, but the moment you get that thought of, I miss this person, they're out of my life, it's like, well, is this worth thinking about? Is this thought worth my attention? I think that's really mature, and I'm very impressed that you already are at that stage, because that's something that I just learned recently. And I'm always really impressed with you guys whenever you come to the stream with insight that I just learned, and it's like, wow, you guys have had this all along. I'm really impressed with the emotional and mental maturity that you guys have, and the emotional intelligence that you guys have. Not that I doubted that, but just the fact that you guys bring a lot to the table. I really love that about you guys, and I'm really thankful for this community. Ow, I hit my little ankle. Yeah, exactly. Oh, I'm curious. Um, and I always want this to be a space where people can be honest and open up, and it seems like that's definitely the space that we've cultivated. Um, if you guys are going through anything and you want to open up about it, definitely feel free. We definitely have the space for that, the time for that. I'm always going to make that time for you, even if I'm in the middle of, talking about something. I don't want you to feel like this is a lecture or a slideshow where you guys feel like you can't contribute to the conversation or feeling like you're cutting me off. Anytime you guys contribute to a conversation, it makes a huge impact on this community, and it's always very appreciated. So, you know, like I said, this was a two-parter. I wasn't sure how much of, stuff that I was going to bring up today, and how long it would take, because I was, like, looking through my notes. And I know I told you guys, like, if I got through it and there was extra time, we could play a game. And a lot of you seem very interested in that idea. Are you guys still interested in playing a game? Or, because I want you guys to have a voice in this. Do you think it would be helpful to decompress now towards the end of the stream after we've sort of processed all of this and absorbed all of this information? Do you want to keep talking about it? What would you guys like to see the rest of the stream tonight be? Would you like that decompression time where we can, I was thinking maybe play Jackbox, and I'll let you guys get the online key so we could all play together? Or if you guys would feel more comfortable continuing talking about this, or if you're going through something that maybe is relevant to letting go of the past, or even if it isn't, maybe it's something you're going through right now, you guys are always welcome to bring that to the table. Hell, I mean, all you guys came here, all you guys that are in the room right now, how are you guys feeling? How are you guys doing today? How's this week been for you? Um, we all grow together. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think the like you guys contributing has been huge. Like yeah, it sounds like it might sound cliche, but like honestly, pat yourselves on the back for the difference that you've made in people today. Like Louis, T. Cassandra isn't on now, but like the way he contributed to the conversation, the way you guys are contributing to the conversation, supporting each other, validating each other's feelings, I absolutely love seeing that. And you guys coming here every week has really pushed me to keep doing this. Um, Actually, I'm gonna take a quick moment to look through something. Um, Actually, there's some things. This isn't. This is. Actually, I could see that this being related to what we're talking about of letting go of the past. How many of you guys? Uh, I'd like to bring up the topic of apologies. For those of you who are ruminating on something, are any of you guys having something that you're ruminating on where you wish you could apologize for something and you don't know how? A saying that I thought was really interesting is it's not too late to apologize, but it's too late to mean it. And I thought that was really interesting. Um, According to studies, apologies with promises of a good future behavior are better received than apologies with an explanation. So if we say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I lashed out at you. I was having a bad day," well, that person probably isn't going to be as receptive to this. But if somebody says, "I had a shitty day and I took it out on you, and that wasn't fair of me to do, and I need to learn. I'm gonna work on." If I'm going through something, not projecting that on you and calming myself before I come to you. And that person is going to be like, wow, they're taking responsibility for their actions and they're explaining to me how they're going to work on this in the future. Now, apologies that have promises of the future, but they keep happening, then it's like, okay, this person, it's all talk and no show at this point. Words don't have as much of a meaning. But if you are gaining trust with this person and you are taking the time to say how you're going to do better, they're going to be more receptive of that. And how many of you guys find it hard to apologize? It is hard for us to apologize a lot of times because it lowers our self-esteem a lot of times because we have to put aside our ego and we have to swallow our pride sometimes. How many of you view yourself as somebody who doesn't apologize, who just refuses to? And on the alternate side of that, how many of you view yourselves as somebody who over apologizes? If somebody said, "Hey, stop apologizing," are you the type of person to be like, "Okay, I'm sorry," and immediately fall back into that? Um, and Whenever we analyze like what happened and what was my part in it, apologies make they become less effective when they're a knee-jerk reaction. If immediately we say, "I'm sorry," then it's like, do we even know what we're sorry for when it's a knee-jerk reaction like that? So that can be harmful in people taking sincerity in our apologies if we over-apologize, or our self-esteem in ourselves if we're constantly feeling like we need to apologize for things that aren't worth apologizing for. I think over-apologizing, I do that. Um, yeah, it's interesting the type of people who I I think if we're more prone to over apologizing. So do you find yourself whenever you are over apologizing, do you feel like that what do you think that has a lot to do with? Like do you think that has to do with this fear that you explained about where you're worried about somebody abandoning you or leaving you? And if you apologize and get out in front of it, maybe that'll ease that anxiety? Um, Or do you think that comes from just feeling like maybe you can't make a mistake? Yes, I think so. Okay. Yeah. And um as my friend, I want you to know that if you ever did anything that upset me, like I mean, we've talked about this. Like, I'd be able to like look you in the eyes and tell you as, caringly and genuinely as possible, without trying to make you feel bad or feel guilty about what I was feeling. Um, so you never should feel like you need to apologize. Like, I even felt bad whenever you came over and were eating snacks at the party and felt like you had to apologize. It's like, hey, that's what the snacks are for. Like, of course. Thanks for comforting me, Shorty Pop. That's comforting, Shorty Pop. Thanks. It's a reactionary performance. Yeah. Um. Yeah. That does sound like that sort of knee jerk reaction, and it's like, um, I had a friend where it's like he was like, he didn't have a lot of money and he was really hungry and had barely been eating because he couldn't afford food. I said, take some of mine, and he's like, I can't. And I said, why can't you? I'm offering it. You're hungry. You're dizzy. You can't afford food. Just take some of it. I have more than enough. And he says, I'm worried that you're just saying that. And I felt so bad that he felt that way, because it's like, you should be able to, trust your friends that they would be honest with you, and whenever they share something, that's why I get suspicious of empty uh empty gestures. So if somebody says, "Oh, can I do this for you?" "Oh, I'm here for you anytime you want to talk." And then whenever you talk to them, they're not there for you. It's like, don't offer that empty gesture, because one, you're putting yourself in a situation that you're not being genuine with that person. You're putting yourself in a situation that you don't want to be in if you don't really mean what you're saying. And if that person tries to take you up on it, there's going to be that resentment. And it's not worth it's just better to be honest, and it's hard. It's hard. Sometimes it's easier, instead of saying, oh, I'm too anxious to come to this party. Sometimes it's easier to say, well, I have something else going on, because we're worried our friends aren't going to be understanding. But it's like, Lily, you have a way of cultivating a circle of friends who are, who I feel, from the people that I've met, are honest with you. Like Andy, me, like, the people in your life who really care about you will be upfront with you. So don't ever worry that you have to apologize for something that, that is minor, because we love you. We're your friends. We're not counting a tally against you. That's not what a real friend does. That's true. I'm very lucky to have such amazing friends. There you go. See, I love that. Love you too. Aw. Yeah. And taking that moment to be grateful, that those fears that your friends aren't your real friends, or what if they're not being honest with you, you have to trust yourself and enough to know that you have a good judge and character, and you have loving people in your life. Like, that affirmation that you're giving to yourself right now, and feeling that gratefulness, like, it seems like the more that you do that, the less that you're going to feel like you need to have that knee-jerk reaction of apologizing. And I think it says something about your introspection as well, because doing the opposite and having a knee-jerk reaction to get defensive I think that's almost more harmful. It's harmful to the people around us, and when we put people around us down, we lose those important connections in our lives. And alternatively, if you're always apologizing for things that you don't necessarily need to be sorry for because they're minor, like apologizing for like taking snacks at a party because you're hungry and there's snacks set out, that's putting yourself down, because you're saying, like, I'm not worthy of this kindness. I mean, do you I mean, I don't want to project my thoughts onto you, so if I ever say, oh, this is because of this or this, I mean that more in a hypothetical sense. So this is, I'm also asking, like, is this how you feel? Do you think this is accurate? Or people who might relate to this, is this what you feel? Does this seem accurate to you? But if I ever say, oh, this might be because of this, and you feel like it's not, don't be afraid to speak up and let me know, because I am definitely not an expert and I don't know what's the best for you. You're your own individual, you have autonomy, and if I'm ever making an assumption that isn't what you're feeling, like, feel free to let me know. I think you're spot on with these observations. Thank you. That actually, that is a validation that I needed to hear, because I don't want to tout I used to have a terrible habit of touting myself as I know what's best for everybody. And it got to a point where my friend, it was a righteous anger, was screaming at me saying, like, you think that what works for you works for for everybody, and it doesn't. And normally I would yell back, but it was one of those moments where I'm like, my first reaction, instead of yelling back, I thought, if I get quiet, if I calm myself, this person will stop yelling, and I'm just going to listen to what they have to say, and they're going to feel validated, and they're not going to feel the need to get defensive because I'm taking the time to hear what they had to say. And because I was thinking about how can I calm this person down, I got out of my own ego of I need to be defensive, and after I focused on let me focus on what this person is feeling, I was able to set my ego aside. Whenever they said that to me of, hey, you need to realize that what works for you doesn't work for other people, that was a very eye-opening experience to me, because I realized, like, wow, I didn't think of it that way. And because I took that moment to set myself aside and not get in my own way, even though my friend was yelling at me, that's recognizing righteous anger. Of course they had the right to be angry at me at that time, because I was being obtuse. And I wasn't listening to what they had to say. And sometimes people do speak up whenever they feel like, hey, this is the time and this person needs to hear this. Yeah. And in addition to giving somebody that love and that that respect of listening to what they have to say, if you're in the wrong and you do apologize, waiting too long, like we had a family member make waves about some family issues that was going on, and they waited so long to give a very generic apology. And whenever we wait a long time to apologize for things that we actually need to apologize for, then it comes off as calculated, and it comes off as insincere. But if we apologize too soon for things that we should apologize for, sometimes that person isn't willing to hear it. And they just think, well, you're just apologizing because you don't want me to be mad. And when somebody's not ready to hear an apology, they're not going to be receptive of it. So sometimes it takes that understanding of the situation. It's very hard to find this happy ground of when is going to be an appropriate time for me to apologize, where they'll be willing to accept it, where I won't be angry, that I'll be able to articulate this in the right way, and where I'm not waiting too long. And that's a huge part of maintaining that homeostasis, that harmony with other people, is whenever we do have to swallow our ego, are we doing it in the right way? And when we minimize a person's feelings, if somebody says something that if we say something that hurts another person, and they say, hey, that hurts me, and we say, oh, I didn't mean it like that, you took it the wrong way, I knew you were going to take it the wrong way, or my other friends don't feel this way, so you don't get to feel this way, or I deal with this pain and I get through it, so you need to get through it too. That's minimizing, saying you're a baby for feeling this way, you're weak. All of that stuff is a way of minimizing somebody else, or dodging. When somebody is like, hey, you're hurting me, and you're dodging the situation, being like, well, this isn't a good time to talk about it, or no, I'm not the bad guy here. A very insincere apology. And keep this in mind when you talk to other people, and it's important to keep in mind when other people are apologizing to you, because you deserve a genuine apology. If somebody's really hurt you, you deserve a genuine apology. Sometimes seeking that specific apology only hurts you, but like if somebody has like a repeated pattern of hurting you, then reflecting on that and being like, okay, this is the best that if somebody keeps fucking up and keeps hurting you and keeps being malicious, then you got to recognize that pattern and be like, okay, this person doesn't have any actions to back this up, and they're minimizing me, they're dodging me. And if somebody says, I'm sorry that you feel bad, then they're saying, well, I'm sorry you feel bad, but I didn't do anything wrong. That's how that comes off. So if somebody just says, I'm sorry that what I said hurt you, that's not a real apology, because they're putting that sorrow on, well, I'm sorry that you are like this. I'm sorry you feel this way. That's not taking any responsibility for what they said. Even if you say something that you didn't mean it in that kind of way, you're still responsible for how that person interpreted it. Another interesting thing is sorrow. So we're talking about sorrow. What about rage? Another way we're coping with things. And Lake, I don't know if you're still on here. If you are, let me know. But I'm really interested to hear your take on this, because I know that this is something you've struggled with. I actually made a joke with my dad recently. I said, "Oh, I've noticed that I have a slight tendency to occasionally have a bit of an anger problem," and he burst out laughing, because it's like I absolutely had an anger. I definitely have exhibited having an anger problem, and I was jokingly minimizing it. Hello, Jacob, in the bottom corner. Um, but I was jokingly minimizing it as a form of poking fun of myself. But this rapid anger, what triggers it? Identifying what causes this anger. There's certain things that our brain, you hear stories where it's like, oh, I wasn't thinking, and I've always been a timid person, but then I punched this person and I wasn't even thinking about it, or I slapped this person on the hand. I had a moment where years and years ago, I was like 18, I was mad at a friend for smoking, and I was always told smoking was bad, and I would, get slapped if I was doing something I shouldn't do, and I slapped my friend in the face for smoking. And I look back at that, I'm like, I can't believe I did that. I thought that was righteous. I thought that was okay to do, and I didn't even think twice about it. It just happened. And the thing is our brain doesn't process very fast. So sometimes we have this rapid response, and a lot of times this rapid response is a threat from evolution. So visual input works first like a motion detector. So sometimes if a ball is flying at you, if your brain takes the time to be like, oh, a ball's flying at us, we should move out of this way, you're going to be like, you're going to immediately dodge out of the way. Or if somebody throws a knife at you, maybe you're not thinking, and your brain is just like, grab thing that's coming at you to stop you. And then you're like, why the fuck did I grab a knife? Or that Seinfeld episode where that guy, where George is a hand model, and he's so protective of his hands, and somebody throws an iron at him and he grabs the iron and ruins his hands. It's like we have that knee-jerk reaction. So when we get angry, that's still that knee-jerk reaction. When we feel like we have to apologize over nothing, our brain is reacting faster than we're actually thinking through our thoughts. That's an instance where being deliberate can cause danger, like if a ball's coming at you, or whenever we have these intense feelings of anger. And actually, who here can relate to anger problems, or overreacting, or flipping out over something and not understanding why? And I think what I'm about to say might also offer some perspective, because evolutionarily, this bubbling up anger, this instant anger, it comes towards primal. It's related to primal things, like if somebody threatens your resources. So if somebody tries to hold a gun to your head and say, give me all your money, in that moment, prior to that, you'd be like, I would never fucking challenge somebody holding a gun to my head. But when you're in that moment and you feel cornered, evolutionarily, you're like, these are my resources. This is my money. I'm not going to give this to this person. I'm going to defend it no matter what. And then be like, wow, I can't believe I fucking tried to grab a gun off of somebody instead of giving them the $50 in my wallet. I have an anger reaction with my parents, but not most other people. It's another thing that was weird when I realized it. Yeah, I think that is very interesting. The way I've noticed that with myself too, the way that I treat my parents and the less patient I am with them. Um, and I'm curious, like, what your take is whenever you feel, what are some reasons you might feel um that you have that knee-jerk reaction to your parents? I think for me personally, maybe if I've seen the pattern with them a long time, I'll get impatient. But with my friends, I might not be tallying up these patterns. If that's something you're fixated on, that can. And I'm not saying that's you. I'm saying, like, whenever I was more fixated on it, I was much more harsh to my parents. But now that I'm like, they made mistakes, they're human. I made mistakes, I'm human. It's okay. Uh, I'm able to cultivate that relationship better. Um, yeah, that's very true. I also expect a lot for them some reason. I think I see myself in them. Oh, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. There's things about if there's something about ourselves that we don't like that we see in our parents, like even like my mom, I love my mom, but like there's times where like she'll stub her if she were to like stub her toe, she'd be like, oh, my toe, it's the end of the world. And get that like attention, that validation of, oh, your pain is valid, like we care about you. She seeks that. And I'm the type of person too where it's like, oh no, I want people to validate this. I'm feeling this way or something like that. Or I would be the type of person who I got sick and I'd be bitching and moaning, and it's like, well, Danny, are you really hurting this bad? Calm down. To the point where I got a scrape on my knee and it hurt like a motherfucker, and my friends were like, you're overreacting, and I'm like, listen, I know I normally overreact, but this is not one of those cases. It's sort of a boy who cried wolf type thing. But but definitely there's things I see in my parents that I get frustrated at because they're things I don't like in myself. So having that awareness that you're talking about, like being like, okay, I expect a lot from them. It's great that you're able to be aware and be like, hey, this isn't fair, yeah, I think that is a lot of that shows a lot of maturity and self-awareness that you're able to recognize that in yourself. And I think more people should, especially with their parents. I think a lot of us have a tendency to be much harsher on our parents. Even like the most cool-headed people, like my cousin, I love her so much, but I would see her with her parents, she'd be like, oh, shut up, mom, nobody cares about that meme. But if somebody else showed a meme, she would not react the same way. So I'd be interested to look more into that, actually. That's a very interesting point. Like, why are we more critical of our parents? Why do we treat our parents differently? Yeah, absolutely, and thanks. Yeah. Um, I have a few more things I was gonna mention to you guys, engage. So we'll go a little bit over. But yeah, children. If we feel like our children are threatened, like never get between a mama bear and her cub. If we feel like our children are in danger, we're gonna have that knee-jerk, rapid response, anger reaction of don't even fighting off I'm gonna use the gunman example. You would fight off a gunman even if that risks your life because you're worried about your kid, or maybe you're worried about resources or your territory. Somebody gets into your house and you don't think twice, or somebody is messing with your car while you're in it and you feel like your space is being encroached upon. Somebody flirts with your mate. Somebody corners you. If you feel like somebody is breaking order in society, like somebody in a Sheetz in my hometown coughed, and somebody said, cover your mouth. This was during the pandemic. They got into a fight over it. One of them pulled a gun on the other, and the other ran them over with their car. So we see how somebody just simply not abiding to social standards, social rules, how we feel like they should respond. Somebody cutting us off in traffic and being like, this fucking piece of shit. We get angry whenever we have this knee-jerk reaction, this uncontrolled anger, when evolutionary things cause us to feel like things aren't fair, things aren't right. These are the things that make us react the most. So being aware of these several things and being aware of our own personal anger triggers is a really big thing in controlling our anger issues. So being able to do that is going to help us let go of the past and help us make decisions that we're not going to regret in the future. Um, and there are instances of righteous anger, but like it can help groups like Black Lives Matter. That is righteous anger. Women fighting for their rights, fighting for the right to vote. That was righteous anger. So the important thing, getting angry is easy, but the difficult thing is being angry with the right person at the right time for the right purpose, in the right to the right degree and in the right way. So with that, you guys, I think I'm gonna stop there. Before we go, I want to hear your guys' thoughts. What did you think about the stream? What would you like to see more of? What do you think could be done better? What did you get out of it?
Don't forget your sign off, buddies.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna see if I have any last words from anybody, and then we're gonna sign off, aren't we, Bub Bub? Aren't we? Yeah. Do you want to say goodbye to everybody? Do you want to thank everybody for coming on the stream and just being a super awesome supporter? This is Scout and this is Sergeant Buckles. We're all really happy that you could join our family today and take part in the conversation. The stream was awesome as always. Buckles, you're on my lap. I love you, Bubby. Did you fart? I'm glad that you liked the stream, Chad. The stream was great. I was very engaged with these discussions. Well, thank you. I'm really glad. I really appreciate the encouragement from you guys, and I'm really glad that you guys got something out of this. Definitely feel free to message me after the stream too. I'm always open to constructive feedback. So thank you guys so much. You guys help make this what it is. We couldn't do this without you. And I will see you guys next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you missed any part of this stream, or if there's notes that you want to take, or something that you missed last week or the week before, all the streams are up. So check the archive, share it with your friends. The more people that hear about this, the bigger our community can get. So thanks again for showing up tonight. And this is Sergeant Buckles. He's going to say goodbye. This is Scout. He's also going to help us sign out. They're very sleepy. It's time for their bedtime. So yeah. Say goodbye, Scout. Bye. All right, Bub Bubs. See you later. Mwah. Bye-bye.